journalist and author. She writes about social and political movements in contemporary India. Rajni ji is the founder and curator of Ahimsa Conversations, an online platform for exploring the possibilities of non-violence. She was formerly the Gandhi Peace Fellow and Getaway House. She is much more, मैं तो 2-3 points उनके बता रही हूँ. She is much more than this. You can read her Wikipedia, फिर आपको पता चलेगा कि who she is. So friends, I welcome Miss Rajni जी. ये हमारी खुशमती और ऑनर है कि उन्होंने अपना टाइम दिया, प्रॉपर प्रोफेशनली लिखा हमारे लिए. एंड मैडम ये हमारा वेबसाइट पे अपलोड होगा एंड वी विल बी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिंग दिस लेक्चर फॉर लार्जर ऑडियंस. तो अब मैं हर्ष जी को इनवाइट करती हूँ. हर्ष जी अपना पर्सपेक्टिव देंगे कि ये लेक्चर और ये टॉपिक किस तरह हमारी सिविल सोसाइटी के लिए फायदेमंद है. सर हर्ष जी आप अपना इंट्रोडक्शन थॉट्स दें प्लीज.
Thank you, Shabin ji. Thank you, and thank you, Rajni ji, for enriching us with your conversation. We are looking forward to your points. जैसा कि हमारे साथी शबीन जी ने कहा कि ये जो साल है ये अमृत महोत्सव चल रहा है और साथ ही साथ अब शुरू हो गई बातचीत अमृत काल की. You know, that is what about the future of the country. Similarly, what we started Amrit Mahotsav of the voluntary sector also we started it. In the last 1 year, almost VANI has taken up many initiatives to underscore the contribution of voluntary sector in the nation building. होता यह है कि हमने काम तो बहुत किया हमारे सेक्टर में. आप ये देखिए कितने ऐसे जो innovations हैं which are done by the sector are now being used at the large scale, not only in India but even outside India. लेकिन hardly people know कि कहाँ से आए हैं. चाहे वो RTI का ले लीजिए, NREGS ले लीजिए, यहाँ तक के चापक नल ले लीजिए, साथी जानते होंगे. All those things are result of the innovation of the sector, but they are not properly documented. और जब हम 75 साल आजादी के मना रहे हैं, so I think it becomes very important to document what the sector has done in the last 75 years, or that will give the boost and confidence to the new generation to work for this country. कि हम जहाँ तक आज देश में खड़े हैं, ये एक सहभागिता है between सरकार, between private sector और civil society organizations. तो हमने एक सीरीज शुरू किया है कि किस तरीके से विभिन्न पहलुओं पे चर्चा हो, विभिन्न तरीकों से is creating series of video films जो हम लोगों ने पहले ही सोशल मीडिया में डाली है. वानी का यूट्यूब चैनल पर जाएंगे तो आपको देखेंगे कि हमने किस तरीके से काफी नामचीन हस्तियों की इंटरव्यूज हम लोगों ने वहां पे अपलोड की है. उसी तरीके से कुछ हम लोगों ने लिस्ट बनानी शुरू की है जिसमें हम बताएं कि जो हमारे सेक्टर में 75 साल हो गए तो किन लोगों ने क्या क्या योगदान दिया जो आज हमारे साथ नहीं है. क्योंकि उसकी अगर डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं करेंगे तो लोगों के पास जानकारी खत्म हो जाएगी. और तीसरा हम लोगों ने शुरू किया है कि अक्सर हम लोग शीशे के सामने खड़े होते हैं सब लोग सुबह, और हम शीशे में देख के कहते हैं कि हाँ आप कितने अच्छे लग रहे हैं. लेकिन यही हम लोग सेक्टर में करते हैं. कई बार हम खड़े होकर ये कहते हैं कि हम कितने अच्छे हैं, हमारा सेक्टर कितना अच्छा है, हम कितने अच्छा काम करते हैं. लेकिन इस यात्रा में कभी कभी हमको ये भी सोचना चाहिए, कोई हमसे ये कहे कि आप कैसे हैं, आप अच्छे हैं, बुरे हैं, आपका वजन ज्यादा है, आपके बाल झड़ रहे हैं, या जो भी सेक्टर की स्थिति है या वो हम जानना चाहते हैं. तो इससे हम लोगों ने सीरीज शुरू किया है जिसमें कि अलग अलग परसेप्शन से अलग अलग साथी जो सेक्टर को देखते हैं उससे बात करें. तो उसी में हमने रजनी जी की चर्चा की. इससे पहले एकेडमिक्स के लोगों ने आके हमको बताया दैट हाउ दे परसीव द सेक्टर. Another important point today is that we don't, the human memory is very short. So if we don't document our work, we ourselves will not realize what we have done. Already in the public domain, there is very less information available in the language which people can understand. हमारे document reports हैं, सब कुछ है, technical documents हैं, but hardly you will find any document which is in a very common language. कि आम इंसान अगर ढूंढे, पता करना चाहे कि क्या हम करते हैं, जैसे नहीं पता लगेगा. अब कई बार जैसा लिखा होता है कि इंडस्ट्री के नाम में पता चल जाता है इंडस्ट्री क्या करती है, लेकिन कई बार इंडस्ट्री की मार्केटिंग और ब्रांड बिल्डिंग इतनी जबरदस्त होती है कि आप कॉफी का नाम ले तो नेस्ले पीने को लोग हो जाते हैं, टूथपेस्ट का नाम लो तो कॉलगेट का नाम सामने आता है। लेकिन क्या हमारे सेक्टर में इस तरीके से आम इंसान की नजरों में संस्थाओं के नाम है? वो नहीं है। तो हम लोगों ने ये प्रोसेस शुरू किया, इसमें रजनी जी की चर्चा कर रहे हैं। इसमें हम लोगों ने, जैसा मैंने कहा, फोकस ये नहीं है कि इस मीटिंग में हमारी बाकी वेबिनार्स की तरह से 100, 300, 400 लोग जुड़े। हमने सिर्फ सिलेक्टेड लोगों को बुलाया, कम लोगों को बताया। हमारा मॉडल वो है जो दूरदर्शन में होता है चर्चा का। कम लोग हैं, कम लोग आपस में बातें करें, लेकिन उसकी जो बात का प्रसार है, जो उसकी बातचीत का बाद में है, वो सारे लोगों के काम आए। तो इसमें आज की चर्चा जो है, मुख्यतः हमने जो रजनी जी से रिक्वेस्ट की है कि हमसे वो बताएं कि इस यात्रा के दौरान आपने देखा होगा कि समाज में कई संस्थाएं ऐसी हैं जो हमारे जैसी हैं, लेकिन वो इस यात्रा में हमसे छूट गई हैं। They are part of the journey. They are with us. They are our types, but we don't have any structured documentation of relationship with those institutions. जैसे कम्युनिटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, सीबीओस हैं, सोशल मूवमेंट्स हैं, बहुत पुराना जुड़ाव रहा है सबका आपस में। उसी तरीके से जैसे आज हम लोग बैठ के बात करते हैं रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन गवर्नमेंट एंड एनजीओस या सिविल सोसाइटी, कितना डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है उसका। व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सीएसआर एंड सीएसओ, कितना डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हो रहा है उसका। उसी तरीके से डोनर्स, ट्रेडिशनल डोनर्स एंड सीएसओ, बहुत डॉक्यूमेंटेशन मिलेगा। लेकिन कम्युनिटी बेस्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, सोशल मूवमेंट, हम लोग यात्रा तो एक साथ करने निकले थे, लेकिन उस यात्रा में साथ भी चले, लेकिन उसका डॉक्यूमेंटेशन नहीं हुआ, उसकी बातचीत नहीं हुई। और साथ ही साथ हम ये भी जानना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि मैडम जर्नलिस्ट हैं, तो आप जर्नलिस्टों के भगवान ने एक ऐसी इंद्री दी होती है, दे हैव गिवन द एक्स्ट्रा सेंस बाय द गॉड। आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट द सो कॉल्ड नाउडेज जो जर्नलिस्ट आजकल हैं, बट फ्यू सिलेक्टेड जर्नलिस्ट आई थिंक यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड, जिनके पास वो आंख होती है, वो देखते हैं और उस आंख से जरा देख के बताए what are the lessons, what are the achievements, what we should do in the Amrit Kal, which is going to be the future of this sector आगे चल के। So thank you। मैं तो लंबा तो नहीं बोल गया रजनी जी, लेकिन मेरे को लगा कि अगर मैं बैकग्राउंड थोड़ा अच्छे से बता दूं तो चर्चा में मजा आएगा। So thank you मैडम, एंड शबीन जी प्लीज। रजनी जी थैंक यू।
Okay, thank you so much. So shall I start? Shabin ji, you're on mute.
जी मैडम, वी आर ऑल वेटिंग
So first of
एंशियसली।
all, thank you so much. आप सबका बहुत बहुत दिल से शुक्रिया कि आपने मुझे ये मौका दिया. It's a very big honor and a privilege, and I really thank you from my heart for this chance to be with all of you and to have a chance to trigger some thinking, some questions. I'm not sure, Harji, if I will be able to fully do justice to the documentation issues that you have raised, which are very real. My effort today will be really to do a kind of overview of the some of the crucial moments which I feel define these last 75 years, and what our reflections on those movements, on those moments, tells us about our challenge today and going forward. मुझे कहा गया है कि मैं हिंदी इंग्लिश दोनों में बोल सकती हूँ, तो I'll keep switching both ways. तो देखिए, मैं बेसिकली एक स्टोरी टेलर हूँ. वो जर्नलिस्ट का लग जाता है लेबल लकीली, क्योंकि मैं कभी कभी अखबारों में लिख लेती हूँ, बट बेसिकली आई एम अ स्टोरी टेलर. तो मैं एक कहानी से शुरू करती हूँ जो कि रामायण से आती है. तो मोमेंट वो है कि जब ब्रिज बन रहा है, ठीक है, राम और लक्ष्मण ने ब्रिज बना के लंका पहुंचना है, और जंगल के सारे प्राणी जो हैं वो पत्थर ला रहे हैं और कुछ ना कुछ कर रहे हैं ताकि ये ब्रिज बनता चला जाए और ये लोग लंका पर जा सके, लंका तक जा सके. तो इस दौरान दो गिलहरियां आती हैं. Two little squirrels come to Ram and say, हम भी कुछ करना चाहते हैं. तो वो कहते हैं, तुम तो इतने छोटे हो, तुम क्या करोगे, इट्स ओके, तुमने पूछा वही बड़ी बात है. पर अगली मिनट में वो क्या देखते हैं कि वो गिलहरियां पानी में अपने आप को, क्योंकि बीच में है ना, समुद्र के किनारे खड़े हैं ये लोग, तो वो गिलहरियां पानी में जाके अपने आप को गीला करके फिर अपनी वो फरी लिटिल बॉडीज को सैंड पे, वहां रेत है ना बीच पे, उसमें लोटपोट होके फिर वो जहां ये पत्थर रखे जा रहे हैं ब्रिज के, वो सारी अपनी शरीर की रेत उन पत्थरों पे उतार रही हैं ताकि उन पे चलने वालों का रास्ता जो है वो ज्यादा स्मूथ और कंफर्टेबल हो जाए, उनको चुभे नहीं। तो ये कहानी मैं इसलिए इससे शुरू की क्योंकि मुझे लगता है कि जो बहुत, अगर ये मेरे अपनी बहुत पर्सनल व्यू है, मैं इसको कोई स्कॉलरशिप का दावा नहीं देती हूँ, मेरी कन्विक्शन है कि ये भाव है जो ज्यादातर लोगों को इस किस्म के सामाजिक कामों में लाता है। क्योंकि देखिए आम इंसान जो, अगर उसकी इतनी वो बलबूता है, इतनी उसकी वो क्या कहते हैं इनिशिएटिव लेने की ताकत है, तो उसको दिख रहा है कि भैया समस्या तो पहाड़ है और मैं बहुत छोटा हूं, लेकिन फिर भी उसमें कूदना, उसमें जो भी अपने रेत के दो तिनकों का, यू नो, योर 2 grains of sand, if you are keen to contribute, it is sometimes as powerful as, you know, the million stones that must have been needed to make that bridge. अब इस कहानी में generally the squirrels are known as worshipful squirrels. In fact, Ram Manohar Lohia also writes about this, and in English he calls them the worshipful squirrels. लेकिन ये आज जो हमारी चर्चा हो रही है ना, उसमें I would like to focus on them as defiant squirrels. देखिए ये defiance की बात है कि मैं छोटा हूं, मेरे पास वो बहुत वो मस्क्यूलर आर्म्स वगैरह नहीं है, so what, मैं फिर भी कुछ करूंगा या मैं फिर भी कुछ करूंगी। तो आई एम डेडिकेटिंग आवर व्हाट 1 hour 20 minutes टुगेदर टू दिस डिफायंट स्क्विरल्स। ठीक है, फिर देखते हैं एंड में हम कहाँ पहुंचते हैं। आई हैव अ लाइव स्टोरी व्हिच आई वांट टू शेयर विद यू, व्हिच विल होपफुली कनेक्ट बैक टू दिस। सो सी सिविल सोसाइटी, अब ये टर्म बहुत कॉमन हो गया है, लेकिन आज भी मैं तो समाज प्रेफर करती हूँ कि भाई जो इंडिया में, भारत में जो समाज है वो हर पीढ़ी में ऐसे लोगों को सामने लाता है, मतलब ऐसे लोग उभर के आते हैं, प्रोड्यूसेस पीपल who defy all odds to not merely do good at an individual level or at a group level. जैसे डू गुड से मेरा मतलब है कि भाई जहां आपको दिखा कि भूखे बच्चे हैं, आपने उनको खाना खिला दिया, जहां आपको लगा कि अस्पताल में दवाइयां कम हैं तो आपने उस अस्पताल में दवाइयां पहुंचानी शुरू कर दी। ये तो होता ही है, ये वो दान की भावना है, एक सहानुभूति की भावना है, और ये बहुत बहुत प्यारी है। मैं इसकी मैं बहुत इज्जत करती हूँ। ये भी गिलहरियां हैं जो अपने अपने जितना उनका बलबूता है लोग अपना योगदान दे रहे हैं। लेकिन my emphasis today is on that amazing continuity of, you know, people, generation after generation, who question and reframe systems that either actively perpetuate injustice or allow it to continue by neglect and acceptance. You know, जो हमारे यहाँ बहुत कहा जाता है, we are like that only. तो ये we are like that only वाले भावना को जो लोग चैलेंज करते हैं ना, इसके विरुद्ध जो लोग जाते हैं कि नो, हम ऐसे नहीं है, मतलब परमानेंटली हम इसको बदल सकते हैं, वो वाले भाव पे आज मेरा इस सेशन में वो ध्यान है इस पर। एंड ये सिविल सोसाइटी टर्म को मैं छोड़ूंगी नहीं, मैं सिविल सोसाइटी और समाज को एक साथ यूज करती रहूंगी थ्रू आउट, ताकि किसी के मन में कंफ्यूजन ना पैदा हो। मैं इसकी मेरी लिमिटेशन क्या लगती है वो मैं यहाँ पर पहले आगे बढ़ने से पहले उसका मतलब लेट मी जस्ट क्लैरिफाई। See, I feel civil society does not really convey the nature and the complexity of transformative social political energies that are there in Indian society and that have really flourished over the last century and more. And I think and today are at a very crucial juncture. And well, we'll deal with that towards the end. Now, social and political action in post-independent India, that is anchored in this civil society, मतलब जो सत्ता के खोज में नहीं रहा, political action, people who have not actively sought power through the electoral process. हम उस किस्म के social and political action की बात करेंगे. And सच तो यह है कि this sector is so diverse that even to attempt an overview in half an hour, 40 minutes will be very inadequate. So I am not even going to try to be comprehensive. मैं पहले ही आपको बता दूं. I will flag that mote there are 3 broad streams of transformative vision in India from the time, I mean, of course, they are from before independence also, but हम arbitrarily 47 से आप बात कर रहे हैं. एक तो जो ऑब्वियस है गांधीयन और गांधीयन सोशलिस्ट स्ट्रीम है, ठीक है. दूसरा आरएसएस और हिंदुत्व स्ट्रीम है. उनका भी एजेंडा ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव है. यू और आई मे नॉट एग्री विद इट, but it is a transformative agenda. And third is the Marxist, Leninist or communist stream. Ye mote, I'm not saying it is limited to these 3 streams, but I'm just saying that these are the broad, big chunks of space that the transformative energies have taken up. अब इन तीनों streams के बीच में the competing and conflicting nature of these streams is itself a very dramatic story. And maybe that we can do another session another time. Today I'm not going to try to unravel, because वो अपने आप में एक पूरी series बन सकती है, शबीन जी. My purpose today is not to attempt a historical analysis of these conflicts, at least not a detailed one. Instead, I will share with you some stories of landmarks that may have crucial relevance for our future. Now, I really again want to make very clear that I admire and honor the wide variety of welfare work that has been done in many spheres in India. सबसे ज़्यादा health, education, water, sanitation, इन सब में अद्भुत काम हुए हैं, आज भी हो रहे हैं, और वो constantly evolve हो रहे हैं. So I honor that. And but I think today my purpose is not to try and document the welfare and improve life on the ground kind of direct work, because that itself is a whole area of inquiry. Instead, my focus today will be on those moments and movements in the last 75 years that have raised serious challenges about what will actually ensure Swaraj and Sarvodaya. Thus, Swaraj hoga tabhi Sarvodaya hoga na. And Sarvodaya se matlab hai, to clarify in English, because some people just think it's a Gandhian movement term. No, Sarvodaya means the well-being of all, every last person. Now, Swaraj here also is not a historical term referring to one obvious dimension of the freedom struggle, which was कि जी self rule हो जाए, अंग्रेज चले जाएं, colonialism खत्म हो जाए. That was, of course, the word for that was Swaraj का संघर्ष. लेकिन I am using Swaraj today here in the rest of this half an hour that I have to mean rule over the self, meaning command over my own passions. मुझे कितना गुस्सा आता है, मुझे कितना किसी से घृणा होती है, मैं संघर्ष के मोड़ पर दूसरे से कैसे पेश आती हूँ, उसमें मैं अपने आप को कितना काबू करके अपने जो हमारी हायर फैकल्टीज हैं, कंपैशन, लव, कोऑपरेशन, इनको मैं कितना टैप कर पाती हूँ. दिस इज रियल स्वराज, command over one's passions, because this then leads to the duty aspect of our role in family, community, nation, and the world. And there is, of course, there's a rights aspect to Swaraj also. And uska jo litmus test hai, I mean, ये जो rights वाला aspect है, आप उसको litmus test की तरह apply कर सकते हैं on any social, political or economic action. And that is, is that action that we are doing building and securing a greater sense of agency for the Antim Jan? Now, Antim Jan literally means the last person, but I would like to use it here to mean everyone. Right? Greater sense of agency. हमने वो पहले ड्यूटी वाला एलिमेंट तो डाल दिया, right? So ड्यूटी वाले एलिमेंट में है कि when I seek to assert my Swaraj, I do it first with complete commitment to the Swaraj of the other person. And only on that basis, then the struggle for rights, sorry, is framed. Now, with Swaraj in this sense as the pivot, I will attempt to explore what are some of the moments of truth that have shaped the present and loom over our future. Now, of course, these are moments that are drawn from areas of work that I am familiar with. Okay, so please, I must make a disclaimer here that I am not attempting to do a comprehensive view. I am not attempting even to fairly represent the other two streams, because most of my work and my study also has been limited largely to the Gandhian socialist stream. So I'll start with one story. मैं एक दो ही मेरे पास कहानियां हैं, बाकी तो मैं आपको लिस्ट सुना दूंगी. तो आप, some of you must be knowing Vibha Gupta. She is the head of Magan Sangralaya at Wardha. She was on the founding team of Center for Science for Villages and Women and Technology, Sustainability, Livelihoods पे उनके अद्भुत काम है. तो विभा बताती हैं कि वो जब she is the daughter of Devendra Bhai, who negotiated along with JP. I mean, he was the junior. He worked with JP and Vinoba, both in Bhudan and in the dacoits surrender and rehabilitation. So Vibha tells the story, which she has also told in her Ahimsa conversation, little commercial here for Ahimsa conversations, कि एक दिन आधी रात को 11-12 बजे उन्होंने दरवाजा खोला, उसने और उसकी छोटी बहन ने, और बाहर 2 डाकू खड़े हुए. तो वो बड़ी घबराई और उन्होंने पिताजी को जाके बुलाया, आइए आइए आइए, देखिए कोई डाकू खड़े हैं, क्योंकि उनके वो लिबास से और उनकी आंखों से और उनके लुक से पता चल रहा था कि ये डाकू होंगे. तो वो तो पहले they were shocked कि डाकू आ गए. Then they became even more shocked because their father came, Devendra Bhai came and hugged these 2 men and, you know, welcomed them like they were his long lost brothers. तो anyway, फिर वो बहुत उनकी आपस में बातचीत चली और ये सब. जब वो चले गए तो विभा कहती है, उन्होंने अपने पिताजी से पूछा कि पर पिताजी ये तो डाकू थे ना, डाकू तो बुरे लोग होते हैं. I mean, aren't these bad people? And Devendra Bhai said, see, काम अच्छे या बुरे होते हैं, लोग अच्छे या बुरे नहीं होते. And मुझे लगता है कि this is the linking thread for a great deal of the best constructive work that has happened in India over 75 years. The ability to separate the action from the doer. In this sense that, you know, you have to judge the action, not the person who is doing it. Now, so ye jo tha ye mode. So basically I'm telling this story to draw your attention to perhaps the first major, I think, burst of energy after independence, which was combination of Bhudan, in which, as you know, lakhs and lakhs of acres of land was donated by landlords to the cause of land distribution. And also the same people, JP and Vinoba, did this amazing work with dacoit surrender. Now, what was this work with dacoit surrender? Just kisi ko agar na pata ho, to I'll just mention it in passing. See, it was recognizing that they are actually victims of a structural injustice. Yes, today they are murderers and they are robbing people, etc. But they have become so because they themselves are victims of a profound structural injustice, which is class-based, caste-based, and very, very circumstance-driven. So now, again, as I said, today is not the occasion to do analytical deconstruction of each of these things. As I said, that can be another exercise. Suffice to say that Bhudan, for all its great success at that moment, became a complicated story because the implementation ran into a lot of very, very painful problems in many areas. Not all, but in many. लेकिन देखिए वही बात है ना, वो जो दो भी grain of sand defiantly उसमें रखे गए, उसको देखिए किसने देखा? अमेरिका से एक लड़का आया, ये 60s की बात है, क्या नाम था उसका? The founder of Ashoka Fellowship, I'm just Drayton came as a young student. Bill Drayton, thank you, Pooja. Bill Drayton came as a student just to wander about India and meet Gandhians, and he got involved in watching Bhudan in action. And eventually, and this is all on record, he has said it in his own biography. This is what led him eventually to found the Ashoka Fellowship, and the reach and the effect of that fellowship. I don't have to elaborate too much here. So this is one major movement. The next that caught my eye, again, as I said, this is my perception. This is not some kind of objective list. The next major movement is the Navnirman. उसको आप एंटी करप्शन कहो, प्रो डेमोक्रेसी कहो, टोटल रेवोल्यूशन का कहो. So there is the whole Navnirman movement of the early 70s. Of course, it was very north-based, and that flows into the declaration of the emergency. And I just want to share with you that one of my friends who was arrested at that time in the emergency was picked up from home, actually, because he had a broken leg. He had broken his leg in some lathi charge a day or two earlier. But his arrest warrant said that he was picked up from Nizamuddin station because he was distributing pamphlets, inciting people to uproot the railway tracks, and he was singing Sarfaroshi ki tamanna ab hamare dil mein hai. So I always like to tell this story because I think it shows that even in an oppressive situation, some officials retain their sense of irony or humor, black humor of a kind. But anyway, I don't want to make light of it. मैं तो ये ऐसे ही वो थोड़ा आपका mood lighten करने के लिए मैंने इस तरह से सुनाया. We know what happened, right? Thousands of people spent more than 2 years in jail. And here's something very interesting that we often overlook. That period was a time when those were all three streams of transformative energy. There people were in jail together. Okay. So this friend who I described to you, whose charge sheet said Nizamuddin station pe tha and all that, he's a Gandhian socialist, but his jailmate was Arun Jaitley, right? Who later, well, we know what he went on to become as a senior politician. Now, I'm going to park that moment here because there are so many questions that the JP movement raises about what happens afterwards. But I just want to close that chapter for our purpose here by saying that, yes, a lot of the people who came out of that movement went on to join electoral politics and they became very famously corrupt, etc. But that doesn't wipe out the fact that a large number of people, much larger number of people, continued to give their life and soul to these struggles for transformation on the ground. And some of this energy we saw in the early 90s in the Narmada movement. Right. So now I want to remind you, this is a scene. Those of us who are, maybe over 40 will remember this scene of Baba Amte with his hands tied, aise, rassi se, right, standing, walking, trying to cross into Gujarat at Ferkuva. And the Gujarat police, arresting him or threatening to arrest him, etc. Now, and as we know, this issue and this movement is a political issue even today. But see what was happening there. One, of course, was Baba Amte, who came from pure welfare humanitarian work, right, of caring for the terminally ill or those who could be saved, then, working for their rehabilitation. That's what he did at Anandban. So here was a man, Baba Amte, who came from that background and committed himself to systemic change. When he decided to move to the banks of the Narmada, saying that if you're going to drown these villages, then I will also drown with them. It was not a romantic action. It was not some kind of, Don Quixote kind of tilting at the windmills. It was a very well thought out way of alerting people who had otherwise been unaware of what human and environmental cost their electricity and water depended on. So Narmada movement succeeded, I think, to a large extent in highlighting the humanitarian aspect. See, even people who were for the dam came around to saying, oh, no, of course, we should not illegally displace people to build the dam, but let's, build the dam and find ways to rehabilitate them. That was one achievement. That was very clear achievement. But the main point of the Andolan, I am afraid, only got registered in a token way. It didn't really change the public mind, which was that the Andolan was saying we need to re-examine what we mean by development. We need to ask ourselves again, what exactly is progress? And why is it being defined in ways that requires hundreds and thousands of people to pay a price so that you and I can have the benefits of development? लेकिन एक और बात हो रही थी इस समय. Okay, again, there is an overlap in the transformative streams. In the valley, I spent a lot of time at that in the 90s, early 90s, in the Narmada Valley, as a supporter, as a journalist. It was very common to see slogans, koi nahi hatega, band nahi banega, and vinash nahi, vikas chahiye. These slogans in the same color ink, paint and the same handwriting would be side by side with mandir wahi banayenge. So the early 90s, you have two major upheavals or major, bursts of energy from the transformative formations. One is saying, let's reconsider that we need to re-evaluate and reconfigure development itself. And the other is saying that there is a body of historical wrongs that can be set right by demolishing a mosque in Ayodhya. And here I would draw your attention to a scene which I think even today remains. Sir, thank you so much. मुझे जरा पानी दे दो, please, एक bottle पानी. Thank you. This moment that I want to recall It's well documented. If you go looking for it in Google, you will find old articles on it. Is somewhere in 1992, I'm not sure exactly when many veteran aged Gandhians decided to go to Ayodhya and offer a silent satyagraha, asking for peace and harmony and communal harmony, and saying that this structure here, this disputed structure, should not be disturbed. Okay? And they were attacked. And by the way, in this group was also, it was in fact led by the aged Sushila Nair, who you will all remember was Gandhiji's personal physician. She was also the sister of Pyarelal. And they were physically attacked. Their charkhas were broken. And when they said, "Arey, but tum aisa kyun kar rahe ho? Bhai, hum to khali Gandhi ki baat aapko batane aaye hain." The reply was, "To hum aapko Godse ki baat batane aaye hain." Now, so here is a clash of two visions of transformation. And yet it kind of, after the upheaval of 92-93, which I don't have to go into details, we all know how much violence was unleashed. In Bombay, there was not just 2 rounds of the communal violence rioting, but then there was bomb blasts. To me, it is a strength of the Samaj that even then, the Aam Aadmi did not become a supporter and a votary of that transformative vision. And our friends, of course, in the civil society groups, much of the 90s was, went into building more institutional frameworks. And that's where, as you know, as has already been pointed out, that's when you get right to information, right to education, the right to work, and very notably, the Land Acquisition Act of 2013. And of course, implementation of the Panchayati Raj provisions. So, while these streams are there in the backdrop, the let's call it the NGO sector here, okay? Because many of the groups that fought for and worked diligently with government and with parliament to, bring substance to these acts were people working in NGOs on the ground, and it was their experiences and their learnings which were being tried to be included in each of these things which we expected would strengthen democracy at, in its bone structure. It was like, giving shell cal to democracy, making its bones stronger. So this we have acknowledged already. I don't have to go into any details on this. And suffice to say that it is because of this full range of activities, including, by the way, the Marxist-Leninist version of land rights, which, as I said, I am not going to talk about at any length because it's not an area in which I have done any work, but I want to definitely mention that it's also an important part of the processes in these 75 years. It is because of the sum total of all this that globally India came to be seen as the leader in civil society action, one of the leaders. So as you know, in 2001, the World Social Forum was formed in Brazil. It was happening in Porto Alegre. I think 3 years in a row it happened there. The first time that it was decided to hold a World Social Forum elsewhere, it was in India. I think historically, that is a very notable, achievement of the Indian social and political action sector. because so many friends and whatever, colleagues or even just strangers working on similar or different issues, but basically working for justice, peacefully, rallied around this idea and saw India as a leader in this field. And the most recent manifestation of these energies is, of course, the anti-CAA protests, where issue is not Hindu-Muslim. For most people, and I talked to a lot of people who were showing up at the protests, their issue was not so much Hindu-Muslim, it was honoring the integrity of the constitution. And last but not least, the amazing rescue and relief work that we saw during the COVID crisis. Some of it done by many people who are present in this Zoom room through their organizations, and a lot of it done by just ordinary people. How many stories we heard, about people who used up something they were saving for their daughter's wedding or something. They used up that money to do relief work for people who were facing absolutely unbearable situations, either on a livelihood crisis front because of lockdowns, or in terms of treatment and access to oxygen and all that. So I mention each of these things as a way of, reaffirming that the energies of Samaj in seeking a transformation towards justice for all have taken diverse forms. I personally like to honor all the forms in their own way, though there is always need for dialogue and discussion between the different streams, even say within each vertical. And there is need for dialogue with those who are saying, no, the constitution is not sacrosanct for us. In fact, we want to change it. We don't agree with this version, this definition of justice. Unke saath bhi hame dialogue to karna hi padega. Otherwise, how do we move forward if we believe in, at least not violent change? I'm therefore controlling myself and not saying non-violent change, because absence of violence is not non-violence. And so it's much easier for more people to agree to not violent change, even if they are not agreeing to non-violence. So here are the big questions that I would, and then I'll pause so that we can have a discussion, because I've kind of used up my 40 minutes. Are these diverse forms of creativity in social political action sufficient to enable we, the people, to move more rapidly and substantially towards justice for all? And do so within the frame of fundamental rights as guaranteed by India's constitution. And more importantly, what are the red flags fluttering, often frantically, that we need to recognize and attend to if we are to be effectively committed to Sarvodaya? And here I am referring to the growing power of the word impact, and a definition of impact which compels the doers to somehow be able to show it on an Excel sheet. When we know, all of us know from, seeing the realities on the ground, that some of the most profound and important and both not just life-changing but nation-building energies they ought not to appear on an Excel sheet, not just that they cannot. So what are the fundamental values that are now at stake, on which we will either build the future or it will be jeopardized? I would like that to be, I'm suggesting that can be the focus of our chat. But before I hand over back to Shabeen, I just wanted to share with you all, a living example of what I'm trying to say here. I was recently, in fact, on Saturday, Friday night and Saturday morning, I was on a train station first in Maharashtra, a small train station, and then in a train with Medha Patkar. We all know, right, that the movement is, 25 years ago now, it will soon be 30 years. At least the high point of Narmada, or when, Medha was appearing on the cover stories of magazines and all that. So that bearing that time gap in mind is very important. And at that time, I have seen this and it used to make sense. Okay, as somebody who, appears on covers of magazines is going to attract public interest, and, for people, that is also a celebrity karke. Now, when people flock to her, and person after person walked up to her, hesitantly said, Patkar madam. And when she confirmed, they were bowing low, they were doing namaste. I think if she had given them permission, many of them would have hugged her. They wanted to buy her dinner, they wanted to buy her chai in the morning. The union people of the catering service on the train found out. I mean, the catering staff found out, they're a union, that Patkar madam is in, coach A1. And they came with nashta. Mera bhi bahut fayda ho gaya. Yeah, I was very happy to behave like the assistant, the helpful companion. I also got nice nashta. But mera matlab ye hai, the reason why I'm dwelling on this story, and then I really will hand over to Shabir. I mean, I really don't know how to say this. इस देश में हमेशा सत्य और त्याग का लोग नमन करेंगे, ये मेरा दावा है. And I say this with a little more force because I know how depressed many of us are these days. And in everyday life, we do see more than enough evidence of the opposite, right? Of really a kind of rampant hatred. But next time we are feeling depressed, let us remember at least this much, that this other energy is also there. And it's not among people who are reading our literature or who are getting our, newsletters, or who are even aware of our existence. They are the true everyday Samaj. And they know she lost. They have no illusion. They know Bandh ban gaya. That's why I admire it. Because they are bowing to her effort. They are bowing to her dedication. They are bowing to her squirrelness. So I think I'll pause here. Over to you, Shabeen.
जी मैडम, आप I agree with every word. How I should appreciate it. आपने हमें अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी के डेज, यूनिवर्सिटी मास्टर्स की क्लास में का फिर से अनुभव करा दिया. That too not of ordinary professors. HOD जब आके पढ़ाते थे, HOD की क्लास, it used to be above everything. तो बहुत मुझे पूजा जी है आज ग्रुप में, थैंक यू बोलना चाहिए. शी recommended you to us and we are so happy and it was excellent. मेरे पास वर्ड्स नहीं है तारीफ करने के. और I invite जिसको भी थोड़ा सा डिस्कशन करना हो, अपने पॉइंट्स रखने हो या कुछ क्लैरिफाई करना हो, तो यू आर वेलकम. हर्ष जी, आप आना चाहेंगे पहले?
नहीं, पहले साथी की सुनते हैं.
जी, everybody is welcome.
And it need not be questions. I feel
Yes,
that I
yes.
would value hearing your reflection.
Any views, yeah.
Yeah.
Rajni, I just wanted to say, and I put it in the chat also, that I think this story that you shared right at the end of Medha Patkar. So you can't hear me?
Very faintly. Can I request you to please speak a little louder, please?
Yeah.
Better. This is good. Boliye na.
Okay. Yeah. I said that I really thank you for sharing that story of Medha Patkar at the end, because I think it just reminds me, certainly, but I think for all of us, that at the end of the day, what people really respond to in their hearts is somebody who is willing to fight and put everything on the line for them or for something that was better. And I think, I mean, I'm just struck even by the pictures that I'm seeing of the Bharat Jodo Yatra. It's not even about Rahul Gandhi or the Congress or anything like that, but just to see the kind of ways in which people are responding to something that's just about Jodo, bring us together. Whether they tomorrow go out and vote or not, or never vote at all, is not the issue. But the fact that at the end of the day, and when you see the crowds and you see the variety and the range of people, that there is something that people are responding to innately, or intrinsically, as you said, that gives me hope, because at the end of the day, that seems to be, even in what we can see, but it's at the heart of it, it seems to be far, far stronger than what is actually trying to break us, because at the end of the day, that fizzles out. And I was struck that the only thing that recently, when I looked at the one comment from the Prime Minister about the whole yatra, it was about Medha Patkar, and that really resonated. That it was interesting that she was the one person that, out of all the people that have met and have walked, she was the one person that was picked up. So I think there's something very powerful there, actually.
I just want to add here. I don't know what it's like today, but remember that the office of the Narmada Bachao Andolan was in Gujarat. It is in Baroda. And I think there was a period where I passed through that office almost once every 2-3 months for some reason or the other. And everybody around, the shopkeepers, the Xerox walas, everybody knew, ye Andolan wale hain. But there was no animosity. There was no rancor. There was no hatred. I mean, they may have disagreed. But see, isme wo, Baba Amte used to say it very beautifully, na? Matbhed to acha hota hai. Meaning disagreement on issues is an important dynamic. That's how collectively we grow. But he said, ye manbhed kaise hota hai? What is this manbhed? Nonsense. You cannot have manbhed, meaning bitterness of the heart or a rupturing at the heart level. And I saw evidence of that throughout. I mean, okay, I know there were 1 or 2 public meetings which were disrupted, but my feeling is, I mean, NBA meetings that sometimes were disrupted even in those days. But I don't think the people disrupting those meetings represented the larger Samaj. Because there she was so recognizable, right? Even then, even more so then, right? And she was in and out of Baroda and so many other cities of Gujarat without anybody intending her any harm. So now, so today we are in a very different situation where the media machinery very deliberately projects people in binaries. That's not the reality. I would like to believe it's not the reality even today. But I can't say with any confidence. I've not been spending time in Gujarat. But would anybody like to challenge anything I said? I would value that also.
और किसी को कुछ डिस्कशन में ज्वाइन होना है? सर अगर खत्म है तो क्लोज करें.
खत्म तो नहीं है, शुरुआत है ये, because
जी
So
आजकल
if nobody is coming in, can I just have a few more minutes for, or seconds even, you know,
of course
to close what I was saying, that freedom as Swaraj, I think that is the only real issue. And if we focus on that, I believe that far more people will be receptive. Abhi kya ho raha hai ki I think a lot of us are also falling into the trap that is set by the mainstream media discourse, which is a binary, divide. How many times these days you hear either somebody in the media or even youngsters, a lot of youngsters say to me, oh, there are two sides of every story. No, there are not. There are far more sides of every story. Why did you think it's only two? Reality is so multidimensional. It's like a Rubik's cube. Each fragment in the cube has so many sides. So I feel that our biggest challenge is to focus on Swaraj as freedom, not free. See, because freedom again is a very, I prefer the word Swaraj to freedom, because in freedom there is always a risk that then if you don't clarify the rights and duties balances in freedom, it can kind of run away with you. But there's no such confusion if we focus on Swaraj. Because Swaraj by definition is firstly a responsibility that I exercise over myself. And on the basis of that strength, I seek to change the external. But there is a condition here. I think the condition is that we need timeless patience. Giving up is not allowed. हार मानना जो है वो ऑप्शन नहीं है. Because once we make the effort to see reality in its multiple dimensions, we begin to realize that, yes, it can be very maddening, because then the situation looks so much more complex and it confuses many people. And so I really believe that many people are drawn to the binary worldview because it's simple, it's easy to grasp. But you look at our whole mythic traditions, no, they are not binary. Achha, so maybe we can close with this one. So then the bridge gets built, right? The bridge gets built to Lanka. Then there's a problem. Now the bridge cannot be used until it is consecrated, right? Puja to essential hai, but there is who is to do the puja? You need a Brahmin. The nearest Brahmin on site is Raman. So he is called. Now, let me tell you, this is not something from a book. This is from the living tradition. In the South, hey, John, you are there, no? What is the tradition where they use those leather puppets and they do all-night performance with music?
Yakshagana.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. Yakshagana tradition, this performance was happening. Ashish Nandi happened to be in the audience. The great psychoanalytical political philosopher. So ye Ashish da ye kahani sunate hain. So in this Yakshagana, they enacted how the bridge is built. Now they need a Brahmin. So they call Ravan only. And he changes. He comes in his simple, that white dhoti, angvastram, comes, he does the puja, knowing the bridge is being built to attack him. And nobody thinks of using that occasion to, quickly bump him off. तो ये क्या आप इमेजिन करिए ना, ये कितनी subtle consciousness है. How many layers of feeling, perception, of both metaphysical and very practical combinations of consciousness. How many things are happening here? So I am pitching मैं तो अपनी bet इसी पे लगा रही हूँ कि भैया, this complexity, this actual reality of non-binary situations is what will see us to the future. That's my hope. Thank you so much, Shabeen. I think I'll stop here unless somebody else wants to come in with something. Parvin is saying something.
I was just wondering, Rajni, in the context of all that you were sharing, and especially the point that you made about freedom, that it can be then unbridled freedom in a sense, this story that you just shared, I wonder whether what it tells us is that there's a time and a place for everything. And that even for war, there was a time and a place. And therefore, there is a certain ethical framework or boundaries, I don't know whether that's the right word, that is in place, that we're conscious of, and that always was in place in a sense. So that even, you went to battle and then there was a time the battle was over and you went back home, and in that point in time, you did not attack one another. It was just understood, that. And in some ways, I think in today's context, whether because of social media, whether because of the ways in which everything is kind of boundaries have come down, walls have come down, barriers have come in some way, that things that were just understood, that formed like almost unconscious or subconsciously, these things were held together, those have come down as well.
Yeah.
And therefore freedom is, but in a different context, freedom would always have had a boundary of equality, justice, compassion, equity, and therefore that would be the boundary around which freedom flourished. And I mean, this story is so powerful that in that particular time, that was not a time for war. And therefore, in that time, it was his time to do what he had to do, and then there was a time for war,
Yeah.
But for that, you have to have such clarity around what is purpose, what is meaning, what is ethical frameworks, boundaries, So I was just wondering whether that is what perhaps we need to be looking at in today's context, if we're looking at movements or having to kind of counter some of these.
But the main reason for that maybe was that in these frames of reference, I mean, the kind of consciousness that the Yakshaganas are drawing on or living within, people are not simple and not one-dimensional. So it's from similar traditions. I've seen this reference in so many different kinds of texts, not in the Ramayana. Is that many times, Ram is asked, what are you doing? Just shoot him in the heart. No, you have perfect aim. You can just shoot him in the heart. And Ram says, no, I can't do that because Sita is dwelling there. He's in love with her. So this, what shall I say? Empathic understanding of even your enemy. He has to be killed. Now that's another part of the complication, that's another lamba kahani. That is there no other way to solve this? That's a very long story. For that we have to have an ahimsa conversation. Over to you, Shabin.
Excellent, ma'am. Excellent. बहुत ही अच्छा. और किसी को शैली मन तो नहीं कर रहा, खत्म करें. हर्ष जी कंक्लूड करना चाहेंगे?
मैं 2-3 चीजें बोलना चाहूंगा. टू द
जी.
कन्वर्सेशन वाज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग.
जी
और
सर.
क्या होता है कई बार, जैसे जो शुरू में रजनी जी ने कहा था और जिससे मैं भी एग्री किया था, मैं भी उन्हीं लोगों में से हूँ कि जिनके पास कभी पावर पॉइंट नहीं होता, बिकॉज यू डोंट वांट टू रिस्ट्रिक्ट योर thought process and sharing process to one particular framework. So therefore, I think this is one of the best conversation we had in this whole series.
Yes.
And also important point also what I like to highlight here is, you know, there are various types of civil societies has been existing around us. अभी तो कुछ और ज्यादा आ गई है, नई तरह की सिविल सोसाइटीज के फॉर्मेशन हम देखने को मिलते हैं. जैसे कि अब देखिए, कुछ तो एक हमारे जैसे ट्रेडिशनल लोग हैं जो कि डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर, वॉलंटरी सेक्टर, जो एक फ्रेमवर्क में आते हैं. साथ ही साथ काफी ऐसा होता है, काफी जैसे सोशल मूवमेंट्स हैं, एक्शन ग्रुप्स हैं, सीबीओस हैं, जो प्रॉपरली रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है कहीं पे, जिनका उस फ्रेमवर्क में ऑपरेट नहीं करते, लेकिन काफी योगदान रहता है, जिसकी जानकारी बहुत कम रहती है. जैसे उन्होंने मेधा का एग्जांपल दिया, तो इस तरीके से काफी देखने को मिलती हैं चीजें. तीसरा, अगर आप देखिएगा कि आजकल काफी कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर से, जिसको हम लोग कोई कहते हैं कि क्रॉस ओवर, या जो आए हैं लोग, या हाई नेटवर्क इंडिविजुअल है, फिलैंथ्रोपिस्ट है, वो भी एक इसी एरिया में ऑपरेट करते हैं. और तीसरा और लास्ट एक ग्रुप, और भी लास्ट तो नहीं है लेकिन एक ग्रुप है, स्पिरिचुअल इंस्टीट्यूशंस है, जो वो भी काफी समाज में आप देखेंगे उनका भी योगदान रहता है. लेकिन जो हम लोग काफी लोग हैं अलग अलग साइलोस में काम करते हैं, कभी आपस में कभी चर्चा ही नहीं होती. जैसे बता रही थी रजनी जी के, जब हम चर्चा करेंगे तभी तो पता लगेगा कि दूसरे को हम कैसे समझेंगे. तो ये काफी एक इंटरेस्टिंग है. और मैं तो ये कहना चाहूंगा पूजा जी, रजनी जी से, कि हम लोगों ने एक प्रोसेस शुरू की है जिसमें वी आर लुकिंग टुवर्ड्स द फ्यूचर ऑफ द सेक्टर. अबाउट, जैसे हम लोग नागपुर में कल एक मीटिंग कर रहे हैं विद ग्रास रूट ग्रुप्स. तो जब हमने सिर्फ ग्रास रूट के ग्रुप्स को बुलाया टू डिस्कस अबाउट बट इज द कैसा फ्यूचर में ग्रास रूट इंस्टीट्यूशंस अपने आप को देखना चाहते हैं. आज के समय में जो आज से 10 साल 20 साल पहले था, 30 साल पहले था, वो बदलता है. लेकिन कई बार हम लोग मोस्टली जो धारा बहती है उसी धारा में हम बह जाते हैं. So we thought that it is much better we'll have discussion. So tomorrow we are having discussion with the grassroots institutions how they want to see. And एक हम लोग 1 और 2 दिसंबर को कर रहे हैं. We are calling it a CSO 2.0. आज के लिए बड़ा 2.0 का एक फॉर्मेशन चला हुआ है. That how CSOs, civil society organizations, the voluntary organizations see themselves कि आने वाले समय में क्या रूप वो चाहते हैं, क्या चैलेंजेस वो देखते हैं. क्योंकि कोविड ने तो हम लोग को अलग अलग तजुर्बे दिए हैं, और भी कई तजुर्बे हो रहे हैं जीवन में. एक तीसरा, उसमें हम लोगों ने चर्चा शुरू की है कि वानी को किस रूप में हम देखते हैं, वानी कैसे देखती है, हम वानी को कैसे देखते हैं. वो चर्चा जो है मैं करना चाहता हूं. और मैं चाहता हूं कि पूजा जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा मैं कि आपसे शबीन जी चर्चा करेगी, क्या इज इट पॉसिबल टू ऑर्गेनाइज दैट कन्वर्सेशन इन बॉम्बे. क्योंकि अक्सर क्या होता है, हमारी जो सोचने की, हम दिल्ली में उसको करते हैं, वही लोग आते हैं, वही बात करते हैं. बॉम्बे से अधिक, सॉरी मुंबई से 1-2 लोग आते हैं, ज्यादा लोग, इस तरीके से चर्चा नहीं हो पाती है. तो इज इट पॉसिबल कि इफ वी हैव दैट 1 डे और 1.5 day conversation somewhere in Bombay where we invite people from that part of the country, जहाँ पे बाकी लोग भी आए, लेकिन वो लोग आए जिन्होंने कभी बातचीत नहीं की है फेस टू फेस. एक ही हम कर रहे हैं. और मैं ये कहूंगा कि रजनी जी ने बहुत अच्छी बातें कही. क्योंकि क्या है कि जिस दौर से हम गुजर रहे हैं रजनी जी, इस दौर में सेक्टर के बारे में बात करने के लिए भी लोग नहीं है. We don't have spokesperson for our sector. Very few spokesperson. I remember आज से 30 साल पहले 90s की बात है, when I entered in this sector, we used to have very strong leadership in this sector. In media, हर जगह बात होती थी, हमारे सेक्टर के लोग जाया करते थे, बात करते थे. लेकिन काफी वर्षों से हमने देखा है कि दैट स्पोक्स पर्सन जो है, और वो खत्म हो चुकी है. स्पोक्समैनशिप जिसको कहेंगे खत्म हो चुकी है. और कौन लोग आके सेक्टर के बारे में बात करते हैं मीडिया में, आप हैरानी होगी, वो लोग आते हैं जो सेक्टर के है ही नहीं. देख, हमको ये भी देखना है कि समाज में मैसेज क्या दे रहे हैं हम लोग. हमारा मैसेज तो जा ही नहीं रहा है. So I think these are the very good conversation, and I am very thankful to all of you for this point, especially आपको. और I hope this charcha continues and come out with the good framework for the future. Thank you, Shavin ji. It's your hands now.
Thank you
Yeah.
all for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. सारे participants को thank you very much. We shall keep in touch. I shall keep sending you the invites for next lectures. There is a round table on this very topic on December 12th. तब भी मैं भेजूंगी सारे experts. पूजा जी भी रहेंगी उस group में. It is a round table on thematic, different thematic areas of civil society working. तो अब सबके thank you, नमस्कार, take care. Thank you very much.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
पूजा जी silent है. पूजा जी नमस्ते.
So thank you. Namaste.
नमस्ते जी.
बहुत रेयर है ना हर्ष.
चुप रहूं मैं.
मैं चुप
Thank you
रहूंगी.
very much, Rajni.
No, thank
But
you.
please,
Thank you.
Pooja ji, please consider my invitation either to do it in Bangalore or in Bombay. VANI का जो discussion, I don't want to do this all the 3 meetings in Delhi. एक नागपुर में कर रहे हैं, एक दिल्ली में कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, लेकिन
बैंगलोर में आइए, हमारे ऑफिस में आइए.
एकदम बैंगलोर में करते हैं. I will tag Shabir, we'll do it in Bangalore.
Yes sir, yes sir.
चर्चा में रह जाते हैं group. Very nice.
जी.
Thank you.
Thank you.
बात
Bye.
करेंगे.
Bye.
Thank
Namaskar.
you. Namaskar.